Okay, so things have been recorded and it's coming up to 5 past. So welcome everyone. The first thing we want to do is give Jason Tishan a chance to talk to you, as he's the CEO of Sylabs, and he wants to give a bit of kind of an overview of what's going on, what's happened, and where things are going.
Cool. I'll start my video so you know, since I'm the new guy here, I haven't met most of you. You can see who I am while I'm talking. So I appreciate you guys taking the time. And for those of you who couldn't make it but are listening to the recording, thank you for listening to it. I just kind of want to start with, first off, giving a bit of my background. Like I said, I'm the new guy here. And that's one of the reasons. The other reason is because those experiences in my background really have heavily influenced my beliefs, my values, and my principles. And now I do not have a tech background, although the environments I came from, we were some of the earliest adapters of cutting edge technology, worked hand in hand with a lot of national laboratories, Googles, and whatnot to develop and innovate new technologies. Yeah, so my background, I spent 27 years in the Navy, and all of it was spent in the SEAL teams. And having been around the globe a few times, I can say with certainty that the SEAL teams are one of the most high performing teams in the world. However, there's plenty of men and women out there who are way more talented. Throughout the rest of the world's militaries, public and private enterprises than we were in the SEAL teams. But what made the teams different was that we actively avoided the pitfalls of this stereotypical rigid military structure. And, it's all too commonplace in the military, but also, unfortunately, in the private and public sector leadership. And, instead in the community, we created a culture of collaboration where all input was welcome, regardless of the rank or title or level of experience. Yes, there was still one person ultimately responsible for making decisions, decision made, discussion over. But the vast majority of the time, anyone in a leadership role ensured they had solicited input from the whole team so that they can make the most informed decision possible. And another, key trait was that no one was ever content with the status quo, because we realized that if one is content with the status quo, it quickly leads to complacency, stagnation, cessation of evolution. That said, we avoided making change just for the sake of change, but that's kind of a fool's errand. And the reason I bring all this up is because I've spent the bulk of my adult life seeing the massive benefit of welcoming all opinions and input and working in a collaborative environment. And, I believe that's how we operate at Sylabs, and that's how we believe this community should always operate. And so I think the decision to fork ultimately boiled down to our firm belief that groundbreaking research or innovation happens when people collaborate openly, when old ideas are questioned, and fresh perspectives are investigated and entertained. I also, I realize that there's plenty of speculation out there, and I know at first glance this may appear to be a battle between two companies in Sylabs and Control IQ. I want to assure you that that is absolutely not the case. And while I won't presume to speak for Greg or anyone else at Control IQ, I would bet they'd tell you the same thing. There's no ill will between us. I've known Greg now for 3 years, since my kind of entry into Silicon Valley, and I like him. Over the past year, we've been busy and pulled in multiple directions, and I haven't had as many opportunities to BS with him as I'd like. But we share some common interest. I enjoy talking to him, and I absolutely respect some of the magic that goes on between his ears. Where there is a difference, though, is kind of the broader mandate of HPC, next generation, and pardon the pun, versus our singular focus on Singularity. We have a responsibility to keep Singularity Community Edition moving forward, continuing to do the day in and day out maintenance and security work, all while striving to get more people involved on the things that they find interesting and exciting within the project. But we're also committed to minimizing the disruption to the users, keeping things as stable as we have done with the project over the past year when it was under HPCNG. Now, I know that change and transition are disruptive, but we feel this is a better course of action than remaining in the status quo for the long term. We want to avoid any potential conflict. And, my opinion is the likelihood of that would have increased had we stayed within the HPC NG realm. As I stated in one of the announcements or postings I did last week, when multiple groups or individuals are as equally as passionate about a vision or a direction or a project, but don't necessarily see things the same way and how to achieve it, conflict is virtually guaranteed. All of us on this call and listening, we only have so many blocks of energy to divide between work, family, friends, and our passions. And honestly, drama and conflict are a drain on that limited amount of energy. I'm getting old, man. I'm in my 50s. I don't have that energy for conflict anymore. So if it can be avoided and minimally impact what you're trying to achieve, then that to me is the right decision to take. And that's probably one of the deeper reasons why we chose to go down this road. So at the end of the day, I own this decision to make this move, and failure will fall squarely on my shoulders, period. But, based on the team's experience, their input and input from, others outside the team, and, after taking the time to conduct a thorough risk assessment, devil's advocating the hell out of it, I feel it ultimately be better for the community in the long run. Honestly, we're already seeing positive activity and a newfound motivation in both HPC, NG, and in this group, Singularity CE, as a result of the move. And I think that all in all, that benefits the community as a whole. And then finally, success, on the other hand, really belongs to all of you in the broader community. I want to reemphasize, I couldn't possibly feel stronger about this point, that success happens by the free exchange of ideas, by collaboration, and by challenging old assumptions. And so I'll just leave it with, my ask to all of you is to do that. I want this to be as open and transparent as possible and as collaborative as possible. There's so many amazing minds out there. It's humbling for a mouth breathing knuckle dragger like myself to just be a part of this community. And so I ask you to for your active participation and engagement. So with that, I'll quit running my mouth and turn it over to DT and Adam to facilitate discussion on the roadmap and answer any comments, questions, concerns. I do want to be cognizant of time and make sure that if there's a ton of questions, I do want to make sure there's time carved out to discuss the way ahead with the project, because I think that is critical as well. And so if we can't get to all the questions, drop them in the Slack channel and or just DM whomever you would like to answer that question directly. So thanks a ton for your time, and I really appreciate you being here, and I'm looking forward to where this evolves to. So thanks a lot.
Thanks, Satish. So what we thought what might be nice to do is before we get on to kind of questions and move on, just give people the opportunity to introduce themselves and maybe say, very briefly how they use Singularity or what kind of capacity they work in or contribute in or anything like that. So we can see who's here, and hopefully if we know a little bit about sort of where you're coming from and what your concerns might be, then we can answer the questions more kind of definitively. Fingers crossed, we'll see. So I'm Dave Trudgeon. I have gone between academia and Sylabs twice. My background is in computer science and bioinformatics in academia. But I've come to Sylabs, and I have been the release manager for Singularity for a bit over a year now, under HPCNG, and now in the SingularityCE project. Adam, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Let me turn my video too. Yeah, so my name's Adam Hughes. I've been with Sylabs, I guess, since the start. Where I started, my career was in cybersecurity. I'm a Canadian living in Canada. Joined Sylabs in 2018. And really what spoke to me about Singularity was kind of its security model. So that's sort of how I see the world. Don't have a huge background in performance computing, but I guess early on here, our services backend was heavily involved in writing that. So if you've used the remote builder or the any of the other services, pretty heavily involved in that. Yeah, that's really about me. Very nice to meet you all, and yeah, hoping to be very engaged in the project going forward. So thanks. Not sure who wants to go next. Adrian, Mike, maybe?
I'll go through the boxes on my screen so we can keep track of it. JG, if you'd like to introduce yourself, that'd be great. If you don't, just you can stay quiet or say pass, and we'll move on.
In the chat, it says JG, my computer does not have a mic, so that might be a problem.
Oh, okay. Oh, right. That's what it says. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, Adrian.
Sounds good. Hi, everyone. I'm Adrian. I came with Sylabs a little over a year ago now, and I'm coming from a background of web. And since being part of the team, I've been handling a lot of the web front-end stuff with the cloud services, also assisting in some infrastructure and some other software engineering across the board. So it's sort of similar to Adam, like I don't really have much HPC and background, but I'm learning tons and happy to be part of this community and push it forward any way we can. So, yeah.
Mike, you're next.
Hey everybody, I'm Mike Frisch. I'm the technical lead of the Singularity Enterprise and Sylabs Cloud side of the fence. I've been in HPC for a long time. I worked at Univa previously and have some contributions in Univa Grid Engine. And also I worked on their NavOps launch product, so cluster provisioning. Prior to that, I was at Platform and again have some contributions in LSF. Looking forward to hearing from you. I especially would appreciate hearing some feedback on the Sylabs Cloud and the people that are using that, and improvements and bugs and whatever we can address there. We do have a dedicated Slack channel, so if anybody's using that and comes across any issues with Sylabs Cloud, feel free to ask there, and one of us will address it. Good to see you all here, and hope to work with you in the future.
Nathan, are you able to introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah. Yeah, I'm a bioinformatics software environment plumber. And my interest in Singularity is that it helps me stuff big, messy bioinformatics software environments in a reproducible, portable container image and run it on HPC clusters.
Cool, thanks. Justin.
My name is Justin Cook. I'm a former Sylabs employee. I do HPC stuff on the side. I had probably 15 years in HPC at Cray Inc. So I help a lot, which is, I guess, is now HP Inc. I'm sorry. But I help people, a lot of people in side projects working on Singularity and HPC and containers and stuff like that. I now work at a company that uses ARM called Monaro, and they're also experimenting with a lot of HPC and stuff like that. So I'm kind of a subject matter expert when it comes to containers and HPC. That's it.
Thanks, Justin. Vanessa.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Vanessa. I'm looking at the list. I think I probably have the oldest history with the project. I was a graduate student at Stanford, and I didn't sort of, I guess I wasn't looking, I didn't, see the project first and then ask if this is for my use case. I was specifically looking for a container technology to bring to my institution. And then I kind of assessed a couple and I found Singularity. And I was there sort of from the beginning. I helped create the original Singularity GitHub organization and the Slacks and the mailing lists. And I've kind of seen it transition from a really thriving sort of organic open source project where people are excited and the development is open and working together. And then it kind of was an LLC. And then from an LLC, it was one company. And then it was two companies. And now it seems to be two companies that I know, Jason, you said there's no battle, but from an outsider's perspective, it seems like it's like battle of the singularities, like which one is going to come out on top. As like a former sort of community member that just had so much fun with the project and cares a lot about it, I'm here because I still care about its sustainability. I ran Singularity Hub for like 5 years. It's now an archive, and I still maintain several associated tools at the Singularity Hub organization. If you've heard of like Singularity Compose or the Python client or Singularity registry server, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm here to support any effort to really kind of figure out what went wrong and how we can get back to that, getting people excited, going back to the original user base that really gave the project life, and just listening to them and going forward from there.
Thanks. Edward?
Hello, sorry I don't have a camera on this computer, but I am a contractor for the High Performance Computing Modernization Program of the Department of Defense. And Singularity is our container system of choice on our HPC machines. And so I am supporting users, doing a lot of installations on different machines, maintenance. We're struggling a bit with that now because some of our machines are fairly old. Discovering the dependencies that we need to get everything up and running, fully. But our users are scientists who want to use containers for their projects. So I'm a relative newcomer to the technology, still learning to be both a user and I guess an administrator. So I love being able to get help from folks like you all.
Cool, thanks. Thanks to everyone for introducing themselves. We kind of on the agenda had now just that we go straight into questions, because we weren't quite sure whether people would kind of be prepped and have a bunch of questions about what we've done or what's going on or this and that. And we can go ahead and do that, or we can talk a little bit about what's happened, what the current situation is, and how things are moving. Do people have any questions they want to kind of jump in and ask right away about what's happened here, or would you like a little bit more background?
I think probably a logistical question, if you go out to any institution right now that's using Singularity, is like, how do we know which one to install? There are two now. And I think Dave Godlove, who's not here, I think he asked that on one of the discussions you email.
Right. So yeah, this question is kind of linked up with sort of two themes, right? There's the kind of current situation of both sides of the fork is that the code is completely compatible. Really, with the timing that this has happened, we've just put out a 3.8.0 release candidate, and I'm pretty sure that there will be an HPC NG one that comes out fairly shortly. And the feature kind of roadmap stuff was basically completed on the HPCNG repo before the fork. So we don't kind of anticipate there being incompatibilities there. So one thing to kind of mention is that you have this 3.8, which is coming out. And if you want to kind of take some time to look around and see what's going on, you should have that time to be able to do that without worrying about immediate incompatibility and things like that. Dave and some others have asked a little bit about kind of the name. We've forked and we've got this project now called SingularityCE. And the most kind of important reason why it still says Singularity in the name and it's SingularityCE is that this is still a runtime that runs Singularity containers in the Singularity image format. And this runtime hasn't become incompatible with the other side of the fork. It can be used with the surrounding tools, things like your project, Vanessa, which are often named Singularity something. And you know, it's difficult, right? It is going to be confusing for people that there are these two things, the HPCNG Singularity and Sylabs has SingularityCE at the Sylabs Singularity location. But in the immediate term and looking kind of 6 months out, because that's the kind of release cycle we've been working on, the situation should be quite straightforward in that it doesn't really matter practically which one you pick, so that you have time to look and see how development is going, how roadmaps develop, you know, what's coming up. I can kind of extend a little bit the kind of emphasis on compatibility by mentioning that you know, Singularity is in the HPC field, and throughout different versions of 3.x, we've always tried to remain compatible. Sylabs has a commercial product which is long-term supported, which gives us kind of an extra emphasis on remaining compatible. So in that kind of immediate to kind of 6-month timeline, my hope is that though it's a little bit confusing, the choice doesn't cause big problems to people who are using Singularity in their workflows. And it's on us to kind of display how we're going to develop it, try and get people involved so that through that time span, people can see what's going on and they can form their own opinions of where they want to contribute and get involved. Does that answer it a little bit?
Yeah, definitely a little bit. I think it's probably a hard question to answer because there's really no like right answer, but I think you've provided a strategy that, you know, someone like myself or even like an HPC center can at least use to move forward and figure out, you know, what to do.
Yeah, I want to mention another point here. We've seen on Twitter, obviously both sides of the fork have said, you know, we've got these spaces, and one of the replies that we've seen come up mentioned, oh, keeping code open source. And we are definitely keeping this code open source under the same license. Nothing has been changed with the fork. So everything's under the BSD license. We're committed to continuing this development and keeping that code there. Singularity has, if you do make a PR, a little contributing guide, and there's a very light at the moment contributor agreement in there, which has been around for a long time. That one is unchanged. Essentially, all the kind of stuff which is around keeping the code open and facilitating contributions and so on hasn't changed with this fork yet. And we don't necessarily see a reason why it needs to change. The HPCNG folk will be able to pull code across, and we would probably be able to do the same. We don't anticipate that the license will change there. This is like Jason said, it's not so much about kind of specific kind of technical arguments or things. It's that we would like to try and establish a very kind of simple, very flat kind of place where people who are interested in Singularity can come with questions, get involved in making contributions to code and documentation or examples and so on, and make it very clear. So the onus is on us to show that we're trying to do that. And we really aren't here to go out and kind of blaze a trail and change the name and become incompatible and try and like drag everyone off into a specific direction very quickly. That's not the goal in this fork. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have more questions, but if someone else wants to go, I don't want to like dominate the questions.
I will ask one. Could you speak a moment to your vision for a release schedule? When you would see versions coming out, how often and all that?
Yeah, sure. So over the past roughly 18 months, we've stuck quite rigidly to a 6-monthly schedule where a new minor version, so a 3.x, has come out in roughly May and November. So the situation right now is that the SingularityCE on our fork, the 3.8 release candidate has just been posted. And we expect that the kind of stable release of that will be in about 2 weeks. And then the next 3.9, we would see being likely in November, to a 6-month kind of process to get there. Now, moving forward, if we'll give the opportunity for more questions, but at the end, I want to kind of show the roadmap document a little bit. We do have down on that some kind of like broad categories of features thinking about for 3.x and features thinking about for 4.x. And we want to kind of maintain this 6-month cycle, but once we start thinking about a 4.x, that's where the timing is a little less clear. Maybe there will be a 3.10 or even a 3.11 before a 4. It's not something I'd like to say now, because this is something we want to decide in conjunction with users, the community, what type of features are needed, and where it makes sense to kind of have a major version jump and so on. And there's a little bit more involved there around thinking about compatibility and how things go on a forked project once you get to that stage.
Okay, I'll ask another question. So I haven't been, I mean, most people haven't been privy to sort of how Sylabs has been engaging with what it considers the user base over these past couple of years. So I'm interested in what y'all here think is like the current Singularity user base and what is sort of the plan moving forward to either keep or better engage with that user base, or to say, we used to have a really large set of users at maybe, these academic institutions or, some other group of national labs, and we kind of lost them along the way. So maybe we should go back and re-engage with them. So if there's been any discussion or sort of strategy for doing that.
Yeah, so our kind of contact with people is obviously split between the open source community and also our customers who are using the commercial version. And really, we see kind of that in those two, not necessarily fields, but the two different aspects of Singularity, like this commercial version and the open source, that the mix of users is roughly kind of similar, right? We've got a lot of academics. We have people at national labs who we talk to as pro customers. We have people at big HPC centers around the world. So the Riken Fugaku project in Japan comes under that. I think, honestly, we've done a better job talking to our customers in a way which hasn't been very visible to the community than we have done to the open source base of users over the past year. Part of that is down to kind of navigating the project and organization structure that we were operating under, and trying to understand how we do that there. Obviously now we can do things much more directly. We have, like I said, a very similar balance between the pro users and the open source space. So it's not kind of really a conflicting area to kind of talk to people and talk about features and so on. We want to get this out in the open so that everyone can see it, not just on kind of a commercial roadmap. We want to have this open roadmap and seek feedback. I think the kind of the best way we're going to do that is to have a few people involved up front who are able to kind of seed some ideas, and then try and reach out to other users for comment on that. I think it's quite hard in an established project like Singularity to just go straight out and ask people, a lot of people, what they want, because as the project has gotten older and more mature, it fulfills more of people's kind of immediate aims already, and we get a little bit of kind of small feature requests that might be very specific to certain use cases, but it's harder to get together and come up with things which will really be broadly applicable and excite a lot of people. I think we would appeal for the help of those here, right? If you know of anyone who's using Singularity and has some kind of issue with it, doesn't like the way something does, wish it did something, then let us know so we can reach out or direct them to the Slack or the mailing list and so on. We can try some direct outreach, but the most success in getting kind of an engaged community who wants to talk about what their issues with a piece of software are and where to go comes when there's sort of like a core group of people who are users and often contributors, but aren't necessarily directly with the company, who are helping to kick off that conversation. I don't know. I kind of asked, do you have specific ideas, Vanessa? I know you've reached a lot of places with your open source tools and things. Do you have suggestions that we could perhaps follow?
Oh yeah, definitely. So kind of looking at the way things are now, I think outreach really is almost essential. It feels like what a lot of these external users have probably lost is just a little bit of kind of trust and consistency. And so I don't think people are going to choose to come back. And the other reason the landscape is very different is because before there was Singularity was like the lead, the one choice. I mean, actually it wasn't the one choice. There's like Charlie Cloud and Shifter. There's a ton of choices, but it was sort of the forefront, the bleeding edge, what everyone kind of was doing. And I think what's happening is other, technologies. So for example, Podman is a huge interest because it's another sort of rootless daemon. In my view, it's very different. So it's not going to work as well with some traditional like HPC architectures. But I think a lot of sort of major centers that, have supercomputers are kind of trying to lean toward Podman because because of kind of the adoption of more kind of ingrained with OCI. Like the Open Container Initiative is like the direction that containers are going with, and it's sort of better to be on a bandwagon that's going in this mutual direction. And I think so. It's funny because if I go and I talk to anyone in in another project or at my institution about containers, about Singularity, they have quite a bit to say. They have a lot of feedback. They have ideas. But I don't really see any of those people, jumping onto the Slack or the mailing list and sharing that. I think they have to be pursued. So I think if I were, making decisions about these things, which I'm not, I would kind of focus on trying to still reach out to those people and try to understand, if are they using Singularity? If they are, what are their troubles? What are their concerns? Because I'm not really convinced that they will come back and just randomly, tell you without a little pursuing.
Yeah, I'll jump in here too. And, I think Tish gave a great overview of, why this fork has happened and why we're trying to build up this community. But I'll give you a little light into my thinking on, our motivation here too. I think over the past couple of years, as I've been involved with the project, what I've seen and I've heard from people like yourself is that, the people writing the code and really haven't, they've been engaging less and less with the community. And that's a really troubling thing for an open source project. And so, part of the motivation here really is us making a really firm public commitment to trying to rebuild that community. This meeting today and the fork, this is really our first step down that path. But we see this completely essential to the project having, better engagement with the user base. Well, to be frank and honest, as a company that has a commercial offering based around that open source project, it's essential to us as a company as well. So we're all in on investing the time and the effort to engage with the users across the board. And I think it's awesome to hear those suggestions. I think we have to do those follow-ups, and we have to really get that fire relit here. And you're right. I mean, I think if we look at where Singularity came from, probably at the time you were doing your original evaluation back in the day, Vanessa, there weren't as many good options for HPC as there are now. Certainly now there's more to look at. That's a more complex decision. And there are standards like OCI that have really taken off, in the cloud native space and elsewhere. So I think it's great, and I hope that what we can do here is this is the first step down that path towards rebuilding that community and kind of rebuilding that engagement, and charting the path forward for the project, figuring out, in an OCI world, how does Singularity remain relevant? How does it remain a great option for HPC centers and everybody doing kind of performance-oriented computing?
Yeah, I think that's spot on about how kind of development changed from being very open to kind of from the outside being like, what's going on? I guess I would say, let's see, what was I going to say? I'm trying to think about, if you go back in time, I was thinking about this earlier, how Singularity really started, and it was very bottom up. It was organic. It was people from all over the place coming together. And one interesting observation is that when the project was really thriving in terms of community, we didn't really have at the beginning, like, a formulated, like, people that were sort of on the high, some committee that's like overseeing things. I guess we sort of had, benevolent dictator, and then people who were primarily maintainers, but we certainly didn't have like community Zoom calls until, I think the Singularity user group, or SUG. And now it's kind of an inverse of that, right? Because now we have top-down approaches that are trying to bring back what was there when there was a bottom-up approach. So I just mentioned this because it's interesting, and that's another kind of reason that I think it's so important to go back to these original users and kind of inspire them, because I think personally for me, the one thing that I worked really hard to try to bring to the project that I don't feel anymore is just that it was really fun. I don't know if other people back then had as much fun as me, but I had a ton of fun, and I miss that. And that would be, my incentive. I've never been someone that like wants to make a ton of money, or someone that like wants to make the best software and take over the world. My incentive for working on things is I kind of want to have fun. And I suspect that that's true for a lot of other people, even if they don't, cognitively realize that you engage with open source projects where you kind of have fun hacking on it together. So yeah, however we figure out how to get that back would be the way to go.
So one of the things that seems kind of a little bit obvious to me is that there are various kind of spaces in which it's quite common for Singularity to be used around other projects, right? So some of the package management projects that SPAC and Easy Build, some of the bioinformatics workflow projects, Nextflow and things like that. It's common for people to use Singularity in these. I think it would be nice for us to kind of go and introduce ourselves into these spaces in a very kind of friendly, how can we help way. I'm a little bit concerned at not wanting to kind of jump in and seem like, oh, we've just done a fork, we're here to kind of claim kind of ownership to everything Singularity, and really don't want to come across like that. And so we need to kind of get involved in these spaces, and if there are any ones you kind of can think of where it would be genuinely kind of welcomed if we turned up and kind of listened to people's frustrations or needs and things, and introduced ourselves and tried to converse a bit more, it'd be great to know where we should go and try and do that.
Yeah, I've mentioned this in chat, but sort of on the flip side, communities that are sort of working on standards for that, obviously includes Singularity under this umbrella of container technologies. I think it would make sense to have representatives. Just a lot of these things, it's just you got to show up. You just got to be there. You don't have to like be a. It's just really easy. So I would say that I would advocate for showing up to some of these open containers meetings, which sometimes it's super boring. You're talking about like these minute details of like image manifests and runtime, but it's important to be there.
Are there any other questions that people would like to ask before we kind of go and look at this roadmap document and talk a little bit about what's there, how to kind of pitch some ideas and things? Okay, what I'm going to try and do here is I will share my browser window. What we've tried to do in the past couple of days is, like I said, Singularity 3.8 has just been released as a kind of release candidate. and the stable release for SingularityCE 3.80 is going to be May 25th. And that's got some features in it around using CNI networks as an unprivileged user, around using GPUs when building. We did a bunch of work to tidy up tests to kind of help development and so on. But that's kind of squared away, really, the features for that 3.8. What we've got further down is a little bit of discussion about that development cycle, which we had a question on. And then people from Sylabs so far, and Vanessa, I know you've contributed as well, have put down some features in the 3.x category and things which would be more likely in a 4.0 major version. And then thoughts about nice to have. And really what we'd like to try and do over the next couple of weeks, I think, is fill this out a bit so that we can then have a conversation about what the priorities are for assigning them as we go forward, targeting specific releases, and we move on to a timeline of when these things can be anticipated and so on. This is in HackMD. The link has been posted on the mailing list. So if you are on the mailing list, you'll see that there's a message linking to it. So everyone is welcome to kind of contribute thoughts about features or changes or whatever to this document directly, or obviously through GitHub. We now have a link which needs to be fixed apparently, but this will directly connect us to an issue template for a new feature request. So we're really kind of keen to ask people to take a look through what's there, have a think about if things are exciting, and if you're particularly interested in one, kind of comment on there or tell us, or wherever you want to reach out, and add what you think might be nice, whether it's something concrete and you can really define it and you think it would fit well in a 3 version, or whether it might be through to a nice to have, which needs to be sort of thought about and fleshed out. So really that's the kind of point we are now. From the point of view of developing Singularity, we want to set out where we go for the next version and beyond, by understanding what's exciting to people. And like I say, we have our ideas there. Several of those ideas aren't our own ideas. They're things that we've learned of from different groups who have those needs. So though it hasn't been necessarily a great kind of really open discussion, we do have this feedback from users, which has led us to some of these features. But we really would love it if you can take a look and provide your input there. Okay, I'm just seeing the messages. Okay, I will post the link. The link to the
yeah, I remember there was another one. I'm looking at the one that has like people in the agenda, and I realize there's nothing after it, and I'm wondering if I'm looking at the wrong one.
I pasted, so this one should be for the more roadmap document. Yeah, I'll make sure that gets tidied up. What we're gonna hopefully do over the next week or so is tie the HackMD space into a GitHub repository. which kind of lets us track changes and things, and will make it easier to go and find different documents and stuff. So I guess we're sort of coming up to the end of the hour. Does anyone have any more questions, or just any general feedback, any kind of thoughts of things we should be thinking about, what we should be doing, or any concerns that you want to raise?
All right, I'll take it as the crickets there. That's good. So I'll just wrap it up. Hey, I appreciate everybody taking the time, whether you could attend or taking the time to listen to it. And let's go back to it. Let's try to regain the vibrancy and the engagement. Flood everybody with the ideas and thoughts, and we'll all talk about it and move forward. I'm excited. And again, it's from my perspective, it's humbling to be part of something that just all the amazing work that goes on, and using it as Singularity as a tool is really cool. I love hearing use cases, where it's being used, and what the benefit to for lack of getting philosophical, for the greater good of humanity. There's a lot of cool stuff going on, and I find it fascinating. So please, let's collaborate. Let's keep the I love transparency, I love collaboration, I love hearing all inputs. So please keep it going, and I thank you all for your time, and appreciate your passion and what you guys do day in and day out. So thank you very much. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, thanks, Jason, and thanks everyone. I think it is a good small step towards something that could be really good. So good to see.
Great, thanks. As I mentioned, I'll get the video recording and I'll transcribe some minutes tomorrow, and we'll get that sent out to the list so that others can see this too. Thanks for coming, everyone.